Hey, this is Professor Homa. I'm going to review creating an apple from a sphere in Blender. And I don't have steps for this printed out, but we'll just review it. It's kind of a review of doing the pair exercise that we did, and we could even save it within the pair folder. I'm going to start off by deleting this cube. I'll right click to select it. I'll hit my X key and I'll hit delete, and I'll get rid of that, and I'll add a mesh, UV sphere mesh, and it's in the center of our page. I could hit S if I want to scale it up a little bit, and I'll hit my 1 key to view it from the front. I can grab this and move it up and let it sit on the grid, and I could zoom in with my mouse a little bit. Now if you zoom in and it goes too far, you could hold down shift and kind of move that here. Now you can see the grid that's in orthographic mode where you're seeing some perspective. If you hit 5, that'll show it straight on, and that's what I want. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to shape this sphere a little bit so it looks more like an apple, similar to what we do in Illustrator, except it's going to be on the full shape. So to do that, I'm going to go into edit mode, which is down here. I'm going to choose edit mode. You could also hit your tab key to go into edit mode, and right now you can see everything selected. All the vertexes, the little points are selected. So I'm going to hit A, and you may want to go back and forth between A to select and deselect. So I want to deselect, and there's 2 ways to make selections of these little points. One way is using the B key. If I hit B, I could draw a little box, and there I selected a bunch of shapes. Now also, a couple things I'll do with this. If I go down here, I want to click on this enable proportional editing. Okay, what that does is when I hit my G key to grab it, now I'm grabbing it, I can then use this, I can roll my scroll wheel on my mouse to increase or decrease. There I'm decreasing the influence. It's a little circle. And if I take it all the way, it's only grabbing the faces I made. Now if I increase it, it's going to affect things around it. And it's going to kind of, grab everything, there'll be some resistance. So actually I'm going to just left click and undo, Control Z or Command Z, because one thing I forgot to do other than turning proportional editing on, and I'll hit A or A just to deselect everything. Down here, this little button here, if I hold your mouse over it, it's called Limit Selection to Visible. What that means, and it's on by default, and it's on when it's dark like that, that means what's on right now is what I select is only the visible points. Now I want to turn that off so that when I select, I'll be selecting all the points right through this thing. And it's kind of weird to figure out, but that's what I want to do. So make sure it looks gray like this. And like I said, you can make a box selection. Here's another selection you can make. You could hold the C key down, and it makes kind of circular. You could just kind of paint your selection, and I'm doing that kind of on the side of the apple. Now, the only thing when you make a circular selection, you have to right click to stop selecting it. Okay, now I'm going to hit my G key, and I have proportional editing still on, so if I roll my circle bigger, you can see it's going to pull out a little bit. And I want to make this look like an apple, so I want kind of a lot of influence on there, and that's good for now. And now I have to hit A to deselect everything, and I'm going to hit C again, and I'll go over here and I'll paint some areas over here that I want to pull out. And remember, with the circular selection, you have to right click to stop that. Then I'll hit G, and I'm just pulling that out a little bit. Now if I wanted to elongate this down at the bottom, which I don't because it tends to look like a strawberry if I elongate it too much, but if I did, remember I hit A to deselect, I hit C, and I could just select some things down here, and then right click to stop that selection. Now if I do G, you can see I could pull this down a little bit. I'll pull it down a little bit. I don't want to make it look like a strawberry or a light bulb or anything, but I'll just pull it down just a little bit from where it was. And then I'll left click to finish that off, and I'll hit A so nothing's selected. Now, the only problem now is I did it from one side. That's from the front. If I go from the side, you can see it still looks kind of round. It pulled things out this way. See, if I move this way, you can see it pulled it out on the side. But now if I go to the side, I'm seeing it straight on, and it's not looking like an apple yet. So what I have to do, I'll hit from the side again, and I'm still in ortho mode. I'll do the same thing. And I'm going to do A just to make sure nothing's selected. And I'll hit the C again, and I'll grab those same points over here, just paint over them, right click, and then hit G, and pull it out just a little bit. And then A to turn it off, and then C again, select over here, and then G. Or actually, what I forgot to do is right click, now G, and I'll just pull that out a little bit. Okay, and I'll move around. I'll hold my middle mouse wheel down, kind of move around, and it may not be perfect. It could be a little squarish in places, but I'm going to leave it alone for now. You could certainly work on sculpting that a little bit more. And one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it down a little bit, and you can see I have things selected. So be careful that you always hit A to deselect. Now this time, I'm going to turn off limit to visible, okay, or turn it on. I guess what I'm doing is turning on limit to visible because I only want to select what's visible. I don't want to go through anything. So what I'm going to do now, I just want to bring the top in a little bit. So I'm going to hit C, and I'm going to kind of select that top area, okay, and then right click to stop it. And you might actually want to go up so you can kind of move down a little bit so see it straight on. So I'm rotating to go down a little bit, and I'm going to move this down. And I still have proportional editing on, so when I move that down, and you can move it down this way, or you could do GZ. Actually, if you do GZ, it'll go down on the Z axis. Now you see if I increase it, it's going to have more influence. If I make it down, it's only the top part's going to go in. So what I like to do is kind of increase it a little bit when I first start it, and then left click, and keep it selected. And now I'm going to hit GZ again, and this time I'm going to decrease my influence and move down a little. And if I hold here, I can't see the top as I go down, but I'm going to go down a little bit, and I'll left click, and maybe I'll kind of move this way a little bit. Okay, now for another time, I'm also going to hit. Notice it's still selected here. That center point's still selected. I'm going to hit GZ again. And this time I'll bring it down a little bit more, and you can barely see my influence there. There it's real big. Now it's getting smaller. And I just want to bring the center point in, kind of like that. I'll bring it up a little so it starts to collapse. I'll bring it down, but I want to go a little deeper. And there's kind of like the hole in my apple there. I could put one in the bottom if I want. I could kind of flip this over, and I'll kind of do it from the top, and I'll hit AA to make sure nothing's selected. C. I'll kind of select that part there, and maybe I'll zoom in that. I'll right click and get off of that. I'll zoom in, do AA again. I'll do C, and you can see when you do C, you could increase how much is going to be selected with the circle or not. So I'm going to go real small here and just select that, and I'll right click, and I'll do GZ again. Remember, that means it'll constrain to the Z axis, so I'll do GZ, and I'll go down on my influence a little because I just want a little coming up, and you could kind of watch it a little bit. If you want more, you could pull it in a little more. You can see it I don't want to pull everything in because I only want this part coming in there, so that's all right. I could click, then if I hit GZ again, I could take my influence down and just bring the little bottom of it in, and then I'm done. So I'll move that around to the top again. I'll put it in one, zoom out, hold shift, kind of move down, and there's my apple. There's my apple shape. And again, I don't want it to be perfect. And what I'm going to do now with my apple, I'll go into 0, and on my camera. Remember, if you want to change your camera view, go over here. I'll change this a little bit. I'll go over here and select camera, and then use the little movie camera thing over here. And that way you could kind of move your X, Y up and down a little, position the camera. There's different ways to position the camera, that's one way. So I'll just put it in here, and I'm going to put a texture on here. But before I do that, I'll right click on my apple, and I'm going to go into materials, which is this one right here, and I'll just hit new, and I'll make it red. I'll just give it a red material, like an apple. And if I render this right now, you can see what it looks like. It looks like a disco ball. It has all those sides on it. So I want to smooth this out a little bit. Matter of fact, it looks more like a strawberry. To get out of this mode, go down to View, put it back to, go to this, and put it back to 3D View, and get out of that thing that we were in. When you render it, it goes into UV Image Editor. But now we're going back to 3D View to see your 3D view again. And what I'm going to do, again, before I worry too much about texture, I'll go to the modifier. I'll go down here to Subdivision Surface, which you can see it splits all these little faces up, and here's the modifier. You can click and make it a little smoother. I'll put it up to like 3. And then I can also go over here to smooth shading, which will smooth it out a little bit more. So you can see my apple looks very smooth right now. And to OK, if you don't like your modifier, hit the X. If it's OK, if you want to make it permanent, hit apply. So that's permanent right now. And one thing I don't know if I mentioned, I did get out of edit mode when I started to do this. I should be in object mode. So once you're done messing with sculpting, get out of edit mode and go into object mode. Okay, now I'm going to add a texture to this. Now I already added a material, so I should be able to go here and add a texture, and I'll hit new. And if I want to change the name of it, I'm going to just type right here, I'll type apple skin. You don't have to have a name, but I'm putting it in, and it still has a T in here, so let me get that out. There's my apple skin. So it's called apple skin, but I didn't do anything yet. It's looking for the clouds. I don't want to put clouds on it. I'm actually going to go in this list where it says clouds, in my texture, and I'm going to choose image or movie. And I have to go down further to hit open to open my image or movie. And where I'm going to go, I think I have a 3D folder here. Let's see, Spring 2013, GRD notes, and it should be in my EX4 folder. There's textures in there. The one we use for the pear is in there, and there's also an apple skin. I'm going to choose apple skin, and I'm going to hit open image. Okay, and there's the apple skin. Now we're going to have to mess around with this a little bit, because if I render this right now, it may not look right. It's not going in the right direction, although it kind of looks like an apple. But I want actually the yellowish part up on the top. So what I have to do is move down here on texture. A couple things I have to do. For mapping, down here, and you can see there's also image mapping, which we may have to mess with a little bit as well. But there's image mapping, and what I'm going to do under image mapping is change it from flat. I'm going to put it to, you can try sphere, and I'll render it again, and it may look okay. Actually, that looks okay. Sometimes you could use tube if it's wrapping around, because you're telling it how it's wrapping around. So that apple actually looks okay. If you have any issues with the size of it, which I did originally, that you could do under image sampling, or not image sampling, I'm sorry, under just regular mapping, and they have a size here. And what you would do, you actually go down to make it bigger, and you go up to make it smaller. So if I wanted the Y bigger, if I wanted to stretch it on my map, if I want to stretch the map on the Y axis, I actually make it smaller. Okay, I'll go down a little bit, and I'll render it, and I'll just show you what that looks like. And you can see now that the yellow part should go in further, and actually that looks okay. I actually want that yellow part in towards the stem a little bit, so that looks okay. And you can, other things you can do, you can also repeat it a certain amount of times. I think that's under image mapping. If I repeat both of them, it should make it a little smaller. Let's just see what happens there. And obviously I don't want that. Now it repeated it twice like that. So I don't want repeating. Let me see. Let me see if I just repeat X and see what happens there. And you could experiment with this. And actually it gives more texture. It kind of wraps it around twice around the X-axis. I don't mind that so much. I don't want to repeat it twice going down, along the Y. And again, we're using X and Y because even though 3D uses Z, when we're talking about a 2D image, like an image map, we're using X and Y. Y going up, X going across. So that's the way it's working now. So that's our apple right now. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save it as, I'll put it right in my EX4 folder, which I'm not sure if that's where I am. I'll have to go back here and make sure I get it into that folder here in my EX4, and I'm just going to call it EX4 Apple. And you could put your last name on that if you want. There's my apple, and I'll hit Save as Blender File and hit Save again, and there's my apple saved.